Good morning, YouTube. Welcome to another episode of BOHNAFIDE. This is kind of a different episode because I'm doing a Q&A as I promised you guys.
I'm Karin Bohn, the founder and creative director at House of Bohn. I've been in the design industry for over 10 years. I decided to do an entire series around my own personal home renovation. Welcome to my home.
I just want to thank you, first of all, for embarking on this journey with me, watching my renovation. I feel like you guys are just as much a part of this renovation as anybody else, including my husband and Diane. You guys have really been along with me for this journey, and it's so special to me that I get to share this with you. You guys have had so many questions along the way, and I felt like I just couldn't reveal episodes until I answered some of your guys' questions. So I had to go to Instagram, I had to go to YouTube to see what you were asking in order to create a Q&A. Before I jump into your guys' questions, I have a question for you. And my question is, I think my next big renovation project is going to be revamping the House of Bohn office. I'd love to do that. I mean, I always have tons of ideas, but I really want to get us into a new office. And so my question for you is, would you guys watch a BOHNAFIDE season 2 on our office renovation? Yes or no? Comment below. And one thing I will say before we get started is I noticed a couple comments lately of people watching my content and saying why I don't have more views on my videos, why I don't have more subscribers, which I think is a compliment. Thank you. You're liking my content. And if you feel that way, then just please share my content. Please share it on Facebook, email it, tweet it, share it on Instagram, whatever your platform is that you like to use, because I would really appreciate it. And my team, of course, always appreciates your guys' love. So sit back, grab a coffee or a glass of wine or whatever it is that you like to drink, water if you're being healthy right now, and we're gonna work through some of these questions. Emily Agorman says, "Hi Karin, love BOHNAFIDE and your contagious entrepreneurial spirit. My question is, did you renovate the house with selling in mind, or did you just go with your own style knowing if it would sell anyways?" Okay, so I think that that is a great question, because when I took on this renovation, I definitely had resale in mind. That was super, super important to me. But I will admit there were a lot of decisions that I made that were because of my own personal style and personal taste. So as an example, the marble that I used in the kitchen and in my master ensuite, super dramatic, very unusual. It's got the pink and purple veining. It's something that you don't normally see, and it's going to appeal only to certain people. So it is definitely a risk that I took, given the fact that I did have resale in mind, but at the same time, embarking in such a big renovation, completely gutting my townhouse, I really wanted to have elements in my home that were special and important to me. So that was something that I just couldn't sacrifice. And I don't think I'm gonna be trying to sell my place for at least a couple of years, so I'm very happy with those decisions. Another question comes through from BMBSHLL Rhett, who asks, where was the most money spent during the renovation? Was it the bathrooms, the kitchen, the flooring? I will say it was definitely the kitchen. The kitchen was the largest renovation aspect, simply because I took down walls, I had moved plumbing, I had so much millwork in the kitchen, I had the electrical panel that I had to contend with in the kitchen, there was the most amount of countertop space and backsplash, so there was the most amount of marble. The kitchen was definitely the most expensive part of the renovation by far. So Nicole LeBron asks, hey Karin, as a creative person, I know you probably had a million ideas and concepts for your home. I did and I didn't, actually, funny enough. How did you narrow it down to the final product? Does your husband have the same style as you, or were there things that you had to compromise on? And if so, what were they? So I didn't really have a million ideas for my home. I kind of knew from the very beginning that I really wanted to have a black kitchen. I knew that I wanted to have light floors. I wanted to incorporate some wood elements like the beams in my home and the butcher block counter in my kitchen. So there were just some things that I knew that I really wanted to have in my home. And I think whenever I start a project, whether it's for myself clearly or for a client, I always have a very clear idea of where I want to go almost immediately. And actually working with my husband was super easy because we do have very similar tastes. We tend to like the same things. We did not always agree on the price of things for sure. So I think that was a very stressful process for him. And he trusted me a lot. So we didn't really fight over that much except for how much things cost. So here's another question from YouTube. Felicia Fraser asks, did you stay within your budget? I will have to say no, absolutely not did I stay within my budget. I actually don't know what my final number was and how over budget I am yet, but there's no way that I had stayed on budget, no. So this question came through on Instagram. This question is by Mathoni, and she says, hi Karin, what would you have done differently during the project? I have a very quick answer and definite answer for that one, and the answer is I would have hired a contractor that I had worked with beforehand, period. So I would not have used a new contractor on my own personal project. That is something that I definitely regret. I wish that I had actually used a contractor that I had worked with numerous times and that I already had a really good established working relationship with. That would definitely be something that I would have done differently. So Priska Cardanum asks, have I planned a laundry room or have I included the washer and dryer somewhere else? I do have a washer and dryer, of course. I actually moved my washer and dryer from the main floor upstairs into my walk-in closet, and I love that it's in the walk-in closet. It's really efficient where it is. I love that it's up in the master bedroom where we have most of our laundry anyways. And of course you guys will get to see the washer and dryer when I do the reveal episodes upstairs in my master closet. Lucero Ion asks, hi Karin, as an interior designer, you have lots of ideas, styles, colors, materials that you would like and want in your home. And because this is your home, you want it to be perfect. How is your process to decide which color, material, etc. should go in your home? Yes, lots of styles, lots of ideas, for sure. I actually think that that was probably one of the things that the contractor didn't like about me, is that I think he felt like I was changing things frequently, which is kind of a funny concept to me because I feel like as a creative person and as a designer, you really are an artist, and as part of your art or the creative process, there's a natural evolution that happens throughout the process, if that makes sense. So as you might issue a design like I did for my house, and as you start to see the walls take shape and finishes come into the space, that might impact or inspire further decisions and further changes. And to me, that's just the natural part of design and how you get a really good end product. So it's always funny to me when contractors are like, "Why you're making changes, how come things are changing?" For me, I feel like, no, you want to change things because it's part of the design process. I feel like I am very lucky in that I have my team, my design team that works with me, so they were great to bounce ideas off of. Karina from my office helped me a ton on my project, and it was great to have a sounding board. But again, I had a really clear vision and concept from the very beginning, and I feel like my home really ended up turning out exactly how I envisioned it. Also from Instagram, this comes from Sylvia Celesti, who asks, how do you handle mistakes on site? What is the hardest part about working with contractors? Mistakes on site happen all the time in every single project. It is bound to happen, whether it's a mistake from there's something incorrect in the drawings, to an order showed up that was wrong, to the contractor didn't read the drawings and installed something incorrectly. There's just so many moving parts to building anything. Building a home, building an office, building a restaurant, construction and interior design is ridden with mistakes. And so I think the best way to deal with it is to always be flexible and professional, if that makes sense. So you have to have an attitude where you know mistakes are going to happen. I think for me, being in the business and having done this for a really long time, it didn't necessarily bother me that mistakes would come up. It just seemed like it was another problem that needed to be solved. For my husband, who's not part of the industry, I know the mistakes were a lot more irritating to him, and he had a much harder time dealing with the mistakes just because he's not used to it. And I do find that dealing with new clients, if they're also not part of the construction world, that can be a really tough thing for them to accept. And often clients can sometimes see that mistakes that come up all the time, I think sometimes if you're not educating them properly, they might think that that's, they have a really bad interior designer or their contractor isn't very good. But sometimes that's not the case at all. It's just the fact that our industry, our work, is ridden with a lot of mistakes. The hardest part about working with my contractor is that I didn't feel that my contractor was very solution oriented in the end. And I would not recommend the contractor that I used. The beginning of the project was great. In the end, there were a lot of things that kind of came up that I didn't think were handled very well. And one of them being some of the mistakes and the things that needed to be corrected on site. I'm always looking for a contractor that's great at problem solving and a contractor that's really collaborative, and also a contractor that's okay with doing things that are maybe a little bit out of the norm or outside of the box. So things that are a little bit different than they've normally seen. That's my interior design style, and I didn't find that my contractor was like that for my house. So in the end, there was just a lot of tension, which was very difficult to deal with. It wasn't necessarily an easy process in the very end. Here's a question from YouTube. So Quinn D asks, hey Karin, what is the one area of your house renovation that you're the most proud of? That is such a great question. It's hard for me to pick an area of the house that I'm the most proud of because I feel like I'm so proud of the renovation as a whole. I definitely do love the kitchen. I think the kitchen turned out great and I'm super happy with my kitchen. I also really love my master bedroom and ensuite. I love the way that it turned out. When you guys see it, you'll remember that I flipped my closet with the bathroom. I love where the ensuite is located in the house. There's so much natural light. I love all the finishes in my ensuite. So those were probably the two biggest changes that happened in the home, and also my favorite rooms in the home. So here's another question from YouTube. Cindy Flores asks, hi Karin, thank you for all the inspiration and knowledge you give us. What was the hardest decision you made during your reno process? I don't know if there was a hardest decision that I had to make, but I did find the decision making actually quite stressful, believe it or not. And it did get to a point where it also wasn't enjoyable, just sort of in the middle of the renovation. And partly that was because I think that I am juggling so many projects at the same time that even though renovating my own home was special in that it's for me and it's my home and my place, really it just got to the point where it felt like just another project that I had to deal with. The thing with construction is that it's so deadline based. So whenever you're doing a project, you always have a crazy deadline that you need to make, and you always have to make a decision because that impacts other people, it impacts trades, it impacts ordering, and so there's always a sense of urgency. And that's often why interior designers burn out, is because they just can't handle operating in a mode where everything is urgent all the time. And my place did get like that after a little while. I got a little frustrated that I was the one making all the decisions for my place. My husband really relied on me for a lot of decisions. It got to a point where it was tough because I just knew what, finish I wanted on my fireplace, and I wasn't too overly concerned with exactly how it was detailed. So that became a little tricky halfway through. So there isn't necessarily just one decision that was the hardest to make. It was really just having to make a series of decisions and having to make them quickly. That was the biggest challenge. Fleur asks, do you plan on staying in this home forever, or would you consider renting it and building something bigger and greater in the future? Absolutely. That is absolutely the goal. I would love in a few years to buy land and build a house. So hopefully this townhouse is going to be a stepping stone to that. We'll see. Of course, real estate in Vancouver is very expensive. For now, I'm happy being in my house, and maybe one day I will rent it or sell it. We'll see what happens, but for now, I'm definitely happy being in my townhouse. If you guys can hear a little engine in the background, that's just Oscar sleeping by the fire. He's happy, we're not going to move him, but you might hear this nice rhythm of snoring in the background. Here's a great question from Lucia Bella. She asks, hi Karin, is it your dream to be on HGTV ultimately? What does your design in Vancouver compare to other designers in your area? I would say it's not ultimately my dream to be on HGTV, believe it or not. I really love that with YouTube, I have full control over the creative process. I love that I can just be myself. I get to engage with you guys. That's super important to me. I have been in talks with many producers over the course of my career, because at one point I did think that I wanted to do a show on HGTV, but the only thing that kept coming up and that I didn't really like is that the networks really want to have a certain look and a certain persona that they know works really well for the network and for television. And ultimately, that's not me. I like fashion, I really like high-end spaces, I really love luxury design, and I don't want to change that, and I don't want to have to conform in order to do an HGTV show. So no, it is not my ultimate dream to be on HGTV. Question from Stacy Delgado, and she asks, what kind of aesthetic would you describe your home? That is such a great question, and I have such a hard time answering that because I consider my aesthetic to be very modern and eclectic, and what that means to me is that I like spaces to feel very current. That doesn't mean on trend, but just current of the time today, but eclectic in that I do like to bring in things that people normally say wouldn't typically go together. I like to mix finishes. I really like to bring in objects and furniture pieces that also you might not think go together. So it is a little bit more of an eclectic style, but definitely modern. So I hope that answers your question. I always have a tough time defining what my projects look like. I don't try to follow a particular aesthetic, if that makes sense. You know, there's a very farmhouse aesthetic or a very contemporary aesthetic or something like that. I don't try to follow a certain look. I just want to do a design that feels good to me, and it ends up being modern and eclectic. This comes from more.cal. What is the one thing or feature you wish you would have spent more or less time deciding on? This is a good question. More or less time deciding on. I will say, as a whole, I wish that I had spent more time up front really investing in the drawings and the design for certain elements. And the reason I say that is because I always advise clients, we're going to do a good set of drawings so that you can price your project properly and that we can go into construction and you have a good set of instructions that are there. For my place being a designer, I sort of took the drawings to a level where they were good enough to move forward, but I didn't want to spend a ton of time really getting a super thorough set of drawings. That's something that I actually regret because I think it would have made the construction process a little bit easier. I also wish that I had spent more time when changes were happening on site actually updating drawings, because what ends up happening is that if something changes on site, for example, we didn't move the electrical panel, which means that we had to make the kitchen a little bit bigger and we had to modify millwork. We were doing a lot of these things on the fly, and when your drawings are keeping up with the changes, it's really easy to spot problem areas. It's really easy to spot, if millwork isn't going to fit or if you need more countertop, things like that. If you're just making decisions on the fly, then you're constantly problem solving. And that's one thing that I actually do regret doing a little bit, because I think it would have made the whole design and construction process just a little bit more streamlined and less stressful. So another question came through from Instagram, and this is from DXDree, and they ask, what is your least favorite part about the renovation? My least favorite part about the renovation is how much time it took. It took way longer than I was expecting. So Chris and I were expecting to be out of our house and out of the apartment for about 3 months. The renovation took almost 6 months, and there are still some deficiencies and stuff like that I'm still finishing. I feel like it maybe could have gone faster if I was, loaded and didn't have anything else to do during my days. But I run a business and have a job, so my attention had to be elsewhere for a large majority of the time. So that kind of slowed the process a little bit too. But definitely the timing is my least favorite. Here's a great question that came from Denise on YouTube. She asks, hi Karin, you did an amazing job on the reno. Any worries about improving the property compared to the rest of the neighborhood? Or is this a non-issue because you plan on living there for a long time? Yes, I think I actually put more value into the home than the rest of the neighborhood for sure. But it is a little bit of a non-issue for me because it is my home. It's my primary residence. I plan on living here for the next couple years. So I was fine making that investment. And with the real estate market in Vancouver right now, it might be flattening a little bit. It's been on this crazy upward trend for the last little while. I'm not overly concerned about selling my house right now, so I'm not too worried about it, but I do know that, or I feel confident that what I put into my house, I'll be able to get out of if I do sell it. For now though, I'm happy living here, so I'm okay with the investment that I made. So last question, this comes from YouTube. This is Sabrina Pink Diamond, who asks, was there any point in the reno that you thought you were going to lose it? Like, whoa, I am way over my head, budget and timeline. Sabrina, yes, absolutely. There was probably when I was getting to month 4 of my renovation, I was thinking not so much like, whoa, I'm way over my head, but oh my effing God. Yes, I'm gonna lose it. We were spending so much money. We were trying to move back into our place. Things with the contractors started not to go super well, and it just wasn't fun anymore. So absolutely, there was a point, and that lasted for almost 2 months. I have to say now, I am really happy to be living in my home. I'm happy to be wrapping everything up. I'm happy that all the decor elements are coming into my space, and I feel super, super proud of what I was able to accomplish. I love my home. I can't wait to share it with you guys. Okay, you guys, so that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your questions, and always just getting up early, watching these videos, watching every episode, commenting, all of that stuff. If you guys aren't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you like my content, please share it and like it. And that's it for now. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.